Joe Biden is the least liked living U.S. president, at least according to new polling numbers from Gallup. So I want to go through sort of most liked, least liked, best, worst, and have that conversation. Let's do it. So let's start with the Gallup numbers. Now, just as a baseline, there are 5 living presidents. We have Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and George W. Bush. Okay, 5. Now, obviously, Trump has been president twice, but let's go through. So, according to Gallup, of those 5, the most popular living president is Barack Obama. 59% of people have a favorable view of him, and 36% of people have an unfavorable view of Obama. Now, what's interesting is Obama's running mate, his vice president, the man who went on to spend 4 years in the White House, Joe Biden, is the least popular of the 5 living presidents. Biden, 39% favorable rating, 57% unfavorable rating. Not great, Bob. Now, Donald Trump is the next least popular president, 48% favorable, 50% unfavorable. And both George W. Bush and Bill Clinton are above water in terms of their favorability. So Bush has a 52% favorable to a 34% unfavorable, plus 18. Clinton is 48% favorable, 41% unfavorable. So, basically what you have is it goes Obama, Bush, Clinton, Trump, Biden. And I think some at least is people get more popular the longer they've been out of office, although Barack Obama's a little bit of an anomaly there. He was always pretty popular, and he remains pretty popular. All right, now, a couple interesting things. In the Gallup polling, the biggest partisan gap, so the biggest gap between who Republicans view favorably and who Democrats view unfavorably is, not surprisingly, Donald Trump, an 86% gap. So Republicans view him very favorably, Democrats view him very unfavorably. I don't think anyone really should be surprised at that. The smallest partisan gap, this is kind of interesting. You might think it would be Barack Obama because he's the most popular of the living presidents. It is not. It is George W. Bush, with just a 15% partisan gap. So 63% of Republicans view him favorably and 48% of Democrats, so almost half of Democrats view George W. Bush favorably, which for someone who lived through his 2 terms is remarkable, because Democrats would tell me all the time during Bush's 2 terms how terrible he was, worst president ever, dictator, authoritarian, and yet now half of Democrats say they really like George W. Bush, which just shows you that time heals all wounds. Now, before I'm going to jump into, so that's the current polling, but I wanted to go beyond that. I wanted to go with best and worst as history has seen them too. So I'm going to go into that. But before I do it, I want to tell you, I always ask people to do 4 things with my videos. I ask you to subscribe to this channel. It's easy and free. I ask you to like this video. It helps me with the algorithm. It helps get my content out to more people. I ask you to comment on this video. Again, it's for the algorithm, people. And I ask you to tell 10 friends about what I'm doing here, making daily political videos. Again, why should you subscribe to me? Because I'm an independent news creator. I am calling balls and strikes in politics, no matter what uniform the batter at the plate is wearing. And you know what? That's too rare. It's too rare. We need to have more independent, nonpartisan, authentic, transparent journalists. That's who I am. That's what I'm doing. That's why you should subscribe. Okay, so let's go back and let's talk about what historians say about our living president. So there's 2 major surveys of historians. One is run by C-SPAN, which is the best network ever, and the other is run by Siena College pollster. Okay, so in 2021, C-SPAN released their latest rankings, easy for me to say, of all presidents, but I broke out the living presidents at least to start. All right, ready? Here's it goes. Obama is the highest ranked of the living presidents according to the C-SPAN Presidential Historians survey. He's 10th. Bill Clinton is 19th. George W. Bush is 29th. Donald Trump is 41st. Now, Joe Biden is not ranked in that because it came out in 2021, but In 2025, this year, C-SPAN is releasing a new survey of their presidential historians. Can't wait. Obviously, Joe Biden will be ranked. Now, let me just go through who the best and the worst presidents overall were in that C-SPAN survey. So overall, this is from 1 to 5, best. Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, Dwight Eisenhower. Okay, so that's C-SPAN. Now, the worst, according to the C-SPAN Presidential Historian Survey, in order from worst to less worst, James Buchanan, Andrew Johnson, Franklin Pierce, Donald Trump, and William Henry Harrison, who died in 30 days. I learned that from the Simpsons' Mediocre President song. He died after giving a speech in the freezing cold in D.C., his inauguration speech without a coat on, and he died 30 days after that. Although, apparently, he didn't actually die of like a cold or pneumonia. It may have been something in the water in the White House. That's a whole other thing. Okay, now, as I mentioned, there are two big major sort of surveys of presidential historians. So I went and looked at Siena College, which did this last in 2022. And here's how they rated the living presidents. Again, Obama first at 11th best president overall. Bill Clinton was 14th. Joe Biden, so they did rate Joe Biden, although it was only 2 years into his term. Joe Biden, 19th. George W. Bush, 35th. Donald Trump, 43rd. Now, Siena's top 5 best presidents: Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Teddy Roosevelt, Thomas Jefferson. And then their 5 worst, again, from worst to less worst: Andrew Johnson, James Buchanan, Donald Trump, Warren Harding, and Franklin Pierce. Now, Donald Trump would roll his eyes and say, who cares? Who cares what a bunch of egg-headed historians think? This is a bunch of woke, liberal, presidential historians. I don't care at all. I got elected, lost, and got reelected, even though he would probably say he won the 2020 election. And so I'm a great president. I'm a historic president. Now, this is what I think when we get into the conversation of best and worst. Is best the one that people like the most? Is worst the one that people like the least? Can we judge best and worst in the near term, or do we have to wait, right? Joe Biden always says, like, okay, I'm not very popular right now, and lost re-election, or didn't run for re-election, but would have lost. But the things I put in place are going to be popular in the long run, and therefore you can't judge me. I think Donald Trump might say the same thing. George W. Bush has gotten a lot more popular since he left office. His father, who is obviously no longer living, but George H.W. Bush is a fascinating case study, right? He loses re-election to Bill Clinton in 1992. He's deeply unpopular. But over the next 20, 30 years, there's a reassessment of his presidency, and he becomes much more popular. Ulysses S. Grant, another great example, not particularly popular among historians right after his time in office, but has become, in many places, one of the top 10 presidents ever as ranked by presidential historians. So my point is, this stuff changes, right? It's not all static. It's fluid. But I do think it is fascinating that Obama is the most liked and Joe Biden is the least liked. Obama is, in every presidential survey I went through, the highest rated of the living presidents. Donald Trump is the lowest rated of the living presidents. So there is some consistency here. Some of it's in the eye of the beholder. Some of it you might think, well, who cares what presidential historians think? I guess if you're inclined to think that, you're inclined to think that. But I will tell you, anyone who cares about this stuff should be excited because, again, as I said earlier in the video, this year we will get a new C-SPAN presidential historians survey that includes Joe Biden. So we'll be able to have some updated numbers. And when that happens, I will bring it to you. All right, everybody, take good care.